Hello, knitters. Barbara Benson here. It seems kind of bright in here. Let me see if I can pull up the Logitech. I've been watching some lives that other people do, but they're on like other platforms. And it seems like for a lot of other lives, I've seen that the person doing the live just kind of sits there and just kind of stares at stuff for a while. Um, which I didn't just waiting for people to show up. So I think it's kind of interesting that that's become the way things work. Um, and so I don't know. Okay. Yeah, that fixed the lighting. Perfect. Hello and welcome to anyone who is joining, or my guess is, since there's only a few people watching right now, what I'm mostly saying hi to is the people who are watching this on the rerun. So thank you for making some time in your day to watch this, even though you weren't able to join us on Thursday night. But I'm super excited to once again do a live. It is in the middle of the summer, so I know a lot of people are on vacation and doing other stuff. So we don't get quite as many people in here, but that's okay. As long as there are a couple of you that want to come and chat with me, I will be happy to hang out and chat with y'all. Hello, Barbara Brian Wilson in Maryland. Thank you for coming back. I do have my water. I remembered it this time. Sometimes I forget it, and I sincerely regret it. I've got to try to, if I lean on my desk, it starts vibrating. And oh, see my hair. My hair, I totally messed up, and I waited too long to schedule my haircut. So when I did call and it was like a situation where I'm like, you know what, I really need a haircut in the next couple weeks. I called and they didn't. They're like, yeah, it's gonna be like a month and a half. So my hair is getting really, really out of hand. So, but hopefully in the next week or so, I can't remember. I do have an appointment. It'll get fixed a bit, but it's just getting a little wonky. Hello, Susan. Thank you so much for joining us. Hello in Ohio. I'm excited. I hope everything's going fun in Ohio. Um, I'm glad you enjoy these Thursday nights, Barbara, and I think it's fun to have another Barbara in here. So that is super fun. Hello, Sarah Joe. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to chat a little bit. But again, it's like the middle of the summer, and I know that everybody else has other things to do in the summer. But I like consistency. I like trying to stick with things and keeping them like predictable. And honestly, so a big part of it is so that other people know when it is, but also for me. My problem is if I need the consistency. I need to have that. This is the schedule. I need a deadline. I need something that tells me that this is what I'm going to do. Because if I start like kind of slipshotting it, then I simply forget that that's something I want to do. So frankly, this having a specific day for this, which is the last Thursday of every month, is as much for me as it is for y'all, because otherwise I would just be all over the place. Hello, Tracy in Kansas. Good to see you again. Hello, Sally Thibodeau in Louisiana. Have you been in here before, Sally? My husband was born in Louisiana. He didn't live there. He like lived there on and off during his childhood. And I definitely have heard the Boudreaux and Thibodeau jokes that he tells. I know that I don't know if that was like mostly from his childhood. Like the one about never mind. I couldn't tell it. But he and his family are from a little town called Minden, Louisiana, which is about an hour to an hour and a half west of Shreveport. So that's northern Louisiana. So apparently, once you get north of Baton Rouge, it's considered Yankee land to people who are from South Louisiana, is what I was told. But I've been there a couple times, and it's really interesting. I had issues dealing because my husband's mother lived on a body of water. A lake Bistineau, I believe it was called. No, or maybe not. I don't know. A lake. And having the whole trees in lakes thing caused me a great deal of consternation because I was like, why are there trees in the middle of the lake? This is not how lakes are supposed to work. But it was fun. Um, Sarah Joe, your chat isn't working? Oh, that's great. That's going to make things a little bit hard if chat isn't working right. Stupid YouTube. Okay, so Deborah says that her chat just became available. I don't know why technology makes everything so difficult. Okay, Chauvin, which is 60 miles south of New Orleans. That is super southern New Orleans. So that's very much like the opposite end of the state, I believe, from where my husband's family is from. The funny thing, Minden is actually where a lot of the TV show True Blood was filmed. So he liked to watch that, and he'd be like, "Yeah, I know where that place is, and I know where that place is." I know when we went to visit where my mother-in-law lived, it was like a 30-minute drive to the closest grocery store, which was a Piggly Wiggly. So it was very, very southern, which is super fun and I enjoyed. Actually, one of the first times we went out there, I remember because again they were on the lake, and the lake they had like dropped it, like the Army Corps of Engineer had dropped it because there was some sort of invasive plant that they were trying to kill it, right? And so like if we let it dry out, it'll die, which didn't work. But we went and like walked on the floor of the lake, which was weird. And there was a dead nutria, which nutria is a rodent of unusual size. It's like this big sort of, I mean, it's not a beaver, but it's not a rat. It's just like this water rodent, but it's enormous. And there was a dead one. And I'm like, can I poke it with a stick? Because I just really feel like I need to poke it with a stick. Because when you find like dead things, I just feel like you got to poke them with sticks. So that was the highlight of that trip, was poking a dead nutria with a stick. I felt it was a very Louisiana thing to do, or at least northern Louisiana. I don't know. It was fun. The cypress trees in the swamps and some lakes. Yeah, there were so many cypress trees. It was really wild. And with the big root systems that anchor them into the water, it's really amazing. See, and where I'm from, and having lived in both South Carolina and Florida, I'm more familiar with mangroves, which they only grow in salt water, and well, brackish water. They'll do brackish to an extent, and they have the big root systems. But mangroves are more bushy. They don't get like tree, like freaking cypress are like gigantic. Um, Susan is asking if I am working on anything new. So I am working on the same thing that I have been working on for months, but I'm finally making progress, which is it should be done, not in the too distant future. This I am a monogamous knitter. I can only work on one project at a time. If I like, I can step away from a project if I needed to have a timeout and for me to think about it, but I can't knit anything else when it's in timeout, because if I start knitting something else, I will never come back to that other project. It's just the way my brain works. I have a half finished project that will never be finished, and it makes me sad, but also I've come to terms with it. So I just have to really um uh when I saw you. Yes, you did. You saw the very first iteration, Susan. You saw the very first iteration of this project, and it literally was frogged 4 times. I did, and I decided that a size 9 needle was too, even though I swatched, I decided a size 9 needle was too big, and I went down to a size 8, and then I got about this far, and I realized that my math was off, and I frogged it back down, and then I got about this far, and I realized that the math was still just lying to me, and I frogged it back down, and then I got about this far again, and I realized I made a mistake in the math, and I So it's been frogged 4 times. I mean, I got about this far 4 times, and had to frog it each time to get it down. But now I'm finally making forward progress on it. I'm not making any more changes. The way it is the way it is going to be. Um, Stitch itch. Your neighbor poked a dead deer with a stick and exploded. Yes, that is the risk of poking things with a stick, but it also is, I think, part of the joy of poking things with a stick. Is it going to explode? Because it could. That could be fun. Sarah Joe, I recently learned that I like 2 projects, a plain stockinette one and a more complex one, because otherwise I'll never do anything more complex. And and I know that being a monogamous knitter is actually I'm an outlier. I don't know that. I think there it's much more common for people to have multiple projects going at a time. Um, I think that for me, it's because I'm a designer. But I also know there are designers that have multiple things going at a time. So I still think I'm the weirdo, but I have to carry through. It matters whether or not, like, it matters whether or not I finish it. When you're just doing it for fun or for like something you want, it's debatable whether or not it matters if you finish it. If you just fall out of love with something, you can just stop. But I kind of have to carry through to be able to get a saleable product. And it's the path I have chosen. Deborah, I have a beautiful cable sweater sitting in a bag, and all I have to do is pick up stitches and knit the neck. It's been that bag for over a year. Deborah, go get that project. If that's all you have to do, go get that project. You can do it. You can do it. Do you have a knitting group? Get somebody else to do it for you. I have found sometimes that if you have a sticking point, co-opting a friend to do something for you might actually be like, tell them you'll take them out for pizza or something if they pick up those stitches for you, and then you will be on. More than 2 projects gives you anxiety, and that's totally understandable. But yes, and sometimes there's brain on projects and brain off projects. Uh, and sometimes you need a brain off project, and sometimes you need a brain on a project. Unfortunately, when you're designing, they're all brain on projects. Well, not necessarily. I mean, once I figured out a good scarf, it was pretty much brain off. But then you just got to finish knitting it. Is the issue? Okay, so since Susan asked, I did make sure to bring it in here so you can see. So here is the pattern, which I've been working on it on where is it? I've been working on it on my couch, and my birds customized a portion of it. They chewed it up. That was super helpful of them. 2 knitting projects, and one of them is a pair of socks. You know, it's my understanding from a lot of sock knitters that the socks don't count. Those are just like it is. And you can see that this is an in progress kind of thing. It always will have, see this was says, keep first and last text at 7 repeat. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing there. I write notes to myself. You can see that I've changed numbers and repeatedly, and this is like the 3rd iteration of this, but at some point I'm like, I just can't waste any more paper. But you guys have seen little tiny chunks of this, but it's gotten big. Look how big it is. See? It's big. This is the beginning. Well, this is where I started. And then we've got this. And then this. And then we're here. I'm in the texture pattern. I have one more repeat of the texture pattern, and then I bring in the final color that has not yet been worked, which is this darker, like, so see how it's here. You can compare it to this. It's just it is darker. Let me see if I can find. There we go. Here. You can see. So this is the final color I'm going to bring in. This is the one that was previous to it. So you can see it's a subtly different color. Let me put those back. I'm really loving this teal color though. I really like it. So it's big. Can I show us the birds? I don't know. I can show you maybe one bird because let me go see if I can acquire a bird. I'll be right back in a second. Are they out? Yes. Where's Jude? You want to come with me and go on the internet? You got a guess? Come on, little girl. Okay, you asked for it. Did you see? There's her tail. She jumped immediately. Come here, sweet girl. So this is... Come here, sweetie. She does not want to cooperate. Raj, you need to come open the door. She wants out. She's stressed out. She's got a big no. One more try. Can you be a good girl, sweetheart? There she is. And now she's leaving. There we go. You can close the door now. Okay, that's what you get. I told you it was going to be problematic at best. And it's funny because sometimes she likes coming in here, but sometimes she doesn't. And obviously, I think it's because I have all of my lights on. I have special lights, big lights that I use for when I'm making videos, and I think those were bothering her. She didn't like that it was all lit up in here. That was Judy, and we also have one named Sugar. There's no way Sugar was going to come because Sugar is attached to my husband, and like she definitely has a person preference, and her person preference is my husband. And when he goes out of town after a day or two, she might deign to sit on my shoulder during out time, but literally if I turn my head to look at her, she would like hiss at me, like the nerve of looking at her. So yeah, she does not like me very much. Yeah, they can't. You're right, Nick Crochet Tiger. They can't squint in the bright lights. So it was probably the bright lights. I didn't think of that, but yeah, she definitely did not like the lights. Judy is disabled, is our disabled bird. The vet doesn't really know what happened. She's young. She's only a few years old, but we had she all of a sudden started exhibiting some very concerning behavior that got worse. And then finally we put her on a daily dose of metformin, Metcam, which is kind of like a pain. It's like Tylenol, and it like arrested the symptoms, and she has steadily improved, but pretty much her symptoms are like as if she had had a stroke. She has weakness in one of her legs, and she can't really climb the way she used to, but she can fly just fine, and she doesn't have any like neurological issues. She just has one side of her lower body, because it's only like her leg that doesn't cooperate. And she's managed to learn how we fixed her cage so that there were a lot more things that she could climb with her beak, and she's really improved. But yeah, the vet said that there's never been any evidence or nobody's done any research on whether or not birds have strokes, but all of her symptoms indicate, because she didn't get an injury, and she didn't like, he thought maybe she ran into a ceiling fan and got a neurological thing, and it's just the weakness in the one limb. So I don't know, but she's a good girl. We do. We give her all kinds well, Knit Crochet Tiger, if you've had cockatiels before, you'll know that there's a they're kind of like cats. They have a very specific amount of love that they want, and any amount over that amount of love, they let you know that this is not an acceptable amount of love. They very much let you know. They're like, yes, please scratch my head, please scratch my head. No, that is enough of that. They're great. I love cockatiels. I've had them before, but they very much they'll put their head for scratches, and you have to do it exactly right. And if you do it wrong, they will let you know, and you get cut off until they decide they need scratches. So that's a whole lot about. Okay, so the shawl. So here's the thing about this shawl that I'm pretty excited about. So this shawl only uses 2 stitch patterns. That's it. There are only 2 stitch patterns in this shawl. And it's in my quest to make stuff that looks like you did something pretty complicated, but in reality, you're not doing anything particularly complicated. It's a very simple slip stitch color work lace. And then this is a texture pattern with twisted stitches in it. Very easy. And so it's just what happens here is, so this stitch right here, right? It's 4 stitches wide and a 4-row repeat. And in this section, the light color is rows 1 and 2. No, the dark color rows 1 and 2. The light color is rows 3 and 4. Okay, so you do that, and then you knit just a stockinette stripe, which switches the position of the colors. So in this section, rows 1 and 2 are the light color, and rows 3 and 4 are the dark color. So they're the exact same stitch. They're just, I shifted where the colors are, and it drastically changes the visual. It changes which color is dominant. So this whole panel is just 1 stitch pattern, and it's 4 rows, 4 stitches wide. Then the texture is a stitch pattern, and it is 4 stitches wide and 4 rows. So it's really, and I wanted a texture stitch that kind of echoes the texture that you see in the lace stitch. And it's going to look a lot different when it's blocked. The stitch will block out. Let me see where I can hold it that you don't see through it quite so much. But the stitch will block out, and you see it's got that little effect to it. So it's actually, as far as the knitting, it's going to be a lot of knitting because it's a bunch of yarn, but it's not complex. But visually, I think it's going to look like you did something pretty fancy, but you're not. It's easy. It's simple. Yeah, there's a difference between easy and simple because it does have the one lace. It's got a centered double decrease. And so if that's not something you like, then that's not something you're going to want to do. So it's not necessarily easy because easy has a very specific definition, but it is definitely simple. Okay. Yes, Tracy, easy stitches that look hard. Oh, hello, L Jordan ATL. Jordan ATL? Are you in Atlanta? Or is it just ATL in your thing? Okay, Christina, see, you say it looks complex. I'm excited because I want it to look complex. And like what I want to do is make something that looks complex. But when you actually are knitting it, you're like, oh, I'm just doing this whole thing over and over and over and over again. Oh, Lee. Yes, you're in Atlanta. I lived in Atlanta for 20 years. Um, and and my husband lived in Atlanta from 1975 until we moved in 2018. So I have no idea how many years that was, but I love Atlanta. I was I still have a lot of Atlanta stuff on my Facebook feed, and that they started the demolition of the North DeKalb Mall, which is kind of it's going to be jarring to go back and see it gone. Um, if those, I know a lot of you aren't in Atlanta. The North of Cab Mall was the very first enclosed air conditioned mall built in the metro Atlanta area. I think it was like 1965 or something like that. And they're tearing it down today. And they're going to put in a mixed use development where it was. And they're talking about how it's going to be like a blueprint for what to do with the space that malls are occupying currently. And if it goes well, then you might see this happening around the country with them tearing down malls and replacing them with this sort of concept. Because I think it also has like parkland concept integrated into it. So that should be interesting. Christina C said, when I first held it up, I thought, oh, I'd never be able to make that, but it sounds like maybe you could. Okay, so could you make that? Are you comfortable with like simple lace? Because literally the lace is yarn over, center double decrease, yarn over, knit one. That's it. A center double decrease. I will have the instructions to it, but a center double decrease is simply inserting as if to knit two together and slipping two stitches off, knitting one, and passing those two stitches over together. It's just like slip one, knit two together, pass slip stitch over, except for it's slip two, knit one, pass two stitches over. It's just what that is it, and you end up with the center stitch on the top as opposed to the rightmost stitch. Instead of it being a left leaning decrease, it's a centered decrease with those three stitches. It really isn't a difficult stitch. And if you really hated it, you could replace it with a slip one, knit two together, pass slip stitch over. It's just going to look slightly different. It's not going to have the same textured effect, but it would still work and it would still be lovely. And then I've written out like very specifically in the pattern how to do, and I made a video. I recently did it, how to do a left twist and a right twist. So here is, so the right twist, and I will put a link in the pattern to the video that I made on how to do a right twist and a left twist. And literally, hello, wake up. And literally that part of the pattern is like right twist, purl two, and then on the next right side row, it's left twist, knit two. I mean, it's nothing. It's really a very straightforward pattern. But I think it looks super fancy. Textured stitches like faux cables. They very much look like faux cables. Yes, I love fake things. I've actually considered making a class, writing a class. One of the things, and I've talked about this before, is sometimes I come up with names for things. I've considered coming up with a class called Cheating at Cables and have it be like a whole bunch of things that you can do to make something that looks like cables, but are not actually cables, because I think that would just be fun. And I'm not necessarily saying something that's going to be easier than cables. It might be way harder to get the cable-y effect, but I just thought cheating at cables sounded funny, personally. It's just, I like amusing myself. Oh, you live in the Northwest OTP. Okay. I know where that is. I used to live in Marietta, but I lived in East Cobb. I lived maybe a mile and a half from the Big Chicken. I was right down from the old Harry's, but I don't know. I bet it's not there anymore. I loved that place before it got taken over by Whole Foods. Whole Foods ate all the Harry's. Okay, so Sally is asking me what is the yarn weight and how many colors are there? So the yarn weight is DK weight, and it's specifically designed to use the Miss Babs Yowza minis. And a Miss Babs Yowza mini is 80 grams, roughly 200 yards. It's only mini by Miss Babs standards. You and it's 6 colors. It calls for 6 colors. So as long as you have about 80 grams of 6 colors, you can do it. And I have chosen what you saw, that what I essentially have is 2 like little mini gradients. One is a lighter blue, a medium blue, and a very dark blue, and then a light pink, a medium pink, and then a slightly darker pink. And I wanted to make sure I had enough contrast between everything. But this one, you could really and truly just have 6 wildly different colors. My doing it in just 2 um, Am I doing it in just like those 2 color runs was just based on the I worked with Miss Babs and sent her a couple of photographs, like little like color concept photographs, and we worked with those. And so it was from the color concept photograph that I sent that we ended up choosing these colors together. And I wanted it to be a little more muted. You could go just buck wild and have lots of bright colors, and as long as they contrast, you're going to be just fine. Or you could do it in all like monochromatic colors. Like you could just honestly, I mean, it's 2, 4, 6. You could do it in just 2 colors. If you didn't want to change all the colors, you could just do it in 2 colors, and you would just need 600 yards of each color. That is 2, 4, 6. Yeah, you just need 600 yards of 2 colors. But or you could have as much fun as you want, or you could do like 1 color and then 3, like 1 color that went all 600 yards, and then 3 contrast colors. I mean, there's any number of ways you could do it. You think you can make it? Woohoo! Yes. You people who would like the shawl. It is gonna be a shawl. Like, this is gonna be a shawl that'll keep you warm. It's gonna be long, it's a heavier weight yarn. It is definitely not just I do a lot of shawls that are just decorative, and this is definitely a shawl that you are gonna be able to wrap up in. Since it's a rectangle, you can wear it like a scarf. Like, if you need to wrap it around like a muffler, it is gonna definitely work. Yeah, you could totally do it in black and white, Knit Crochet Tiger. Good evening, Mark the bass player. You got in late. I'm so glad you're here. Soon. So Susan is asking if it's going to be published soon. My goal is I'm hoping to finish knitting it. I'm hoping to finish knitting it by hopefully I'll get it finished knitting next month. And then I have to get it photographed and I got to get it tech edited. I am hoping by August I might be able to get it published. And then I can start working on other things. I want to do another second sock cowl. I have some ideas in my head. I want to do some smaller things just so that I can, after doing such a large project, I want to do some smaller projects. The shape of that Sophie shawl that everybody has gone bonkers over, where it starts little and gets big in the middle, and it's just it's a shape that's been around for a while, but everybody seems to be real excited about it right now. It could be fun to do something small like that. But oh, actually, let me see. I'm excited about. So this, I said, this is the next color, and I'm super excited to see it with this teal. I think that is going to be really nice. And then it will shift into being paired with the darkest, which I think is going to be really cool. And then once this runs out, this will go back and be paired with, where is it? I need a bigger bag. This. So then we'll go back to this, because this is where we started and this is where we ended. So what it is the pattern repeat. If you like take the two ends and put them together, it will have wrapped all the way around. And that particular little trick that I wanted to do is what caused me so much headache. Because what it is we started. Okay, so if you look here, you've got the texture panel, light dominant, dark dominant, right? So each color, so here you have the blue, light dominant, dark dominant, texture blue. And then the blue continues, but then we're bringing in the dark. So each color has two of these panels where it goes with one color, and then two where it goes with another color, and then this texture panel. And so what's going to happen here is you can see here that I just started with one chunk, and then the other end will be this, the completion of this, and it will be dark dominant, right? I haven't decided if I'm going to do the bind off light or do the bind off dark. I don't know if I want the ends to match. I haven't decided that. So, but trying to get half this panel here and then figure everything out was what the math kept throwing me, because I just made it hard on myself. And the thing is I just made it hard on myself because it's not going to be hard once it's written. None of y'all are going to have a problem with it. I just made it difficult for myself. You're mesmerized by my shawl. Oh, thank you. I'm excited to see what it looks like blocked. That is really my big, I want to get it done because I want to get it blocked, because I want to see what it looks like blocked, because it is going to look very different blocked. I do like the texture of it, but I'm excited. And I'm also very curious to see how big it ends up being, because I think I might end up being, one of the reasons I ended up frogging it early on is because I cast on too many stitches and I thought it was going to be too wide. And since it was going to be too wide, it wouldn't be long enough. And I'm a little concerned that I overcompensated and it's going to be a little bit narrower than I wanted it to be, but I can't tell until it's blocked. So I don't know. I'm talking a lot about that. Oh, hello, Celeste. Thank you for coming in. Oh, Tracy left a question on the Facebook page. Let me go look at the Facebook page. I've been mostly sitting on my couch and knitting is what I have been doing. So there you go. Okay. So let me double check. I got your question, Tracy. We will get to it in just a moment. Okay, Okay. The pattern will definitely be on, okay, the Sophie shawl, it's by Petite Knit. It's not a crescent or a boomerang. It starts at a point and increases until it's the full width and then decreases back to a point. It's like a diamond shape, is the Sophie shawl, I believe. At least the one I'm thinking of. The pattern will be on Ravelry and it will be available on my website. Whichever one works better for you is fine for me. I might make sure that it will be on Knit Companion as well, if they are interested in doing that. Watching my stream, sitting on the couch and knitting. That is, you got to hold that couch down. Okay. So Tracy put a question on the Facebook, which I really appreciate. Maybe a strange question, but how do you weave in ends of lace knitting? Same question with cotton yarn. Lace is so open and cotton doesn't grab itself. Yes, both of those are problems. So let's start with cotton yarn, because that's the easier question. First, if you are working with cotton or another plant-based yarn, make sure you leave a longer tail than you would normally leave. I always go about 6 to 8. I always do like 6 inches or more. I know that I have measured that the distance between my pinky and my thumb is 6 inches. So I always just pull that down when I'm leaving a tail, and I leave that. If you're doing cotton or linen or any plant fiber that isn't going to grab onto itself, do half again as much. So you have a nice long tail to weave in. And a lot of it depends on how you weave stitches in. I weave in my ends using from the wrong on the wrong side using the duplicate stitch technique. And what that means is that you're actually, putting the needle on the end and tracing the shape of those stitches. And what you want to make sure you do is do 5, 6, 7 stitches in one direction, then go up vertically and do a stitch, and go up vertically again and do a stitch. So you've left a little space, and then weave in the other direction. That changing directions is one of the things that is going to, if that yarn starts flipping out, slipping out, or it gets yanked, it very rarely is going to turn the corner and continue flipping out. Specifically with, again, cottons and the plant fibers, if they are being super uncooperative and it's a plied yarn, what you can do is actually separate out the plies. And now I'm not saying if it's a 5-ply yarn, you have to do all 5 plies, just separate into 2 different sections and weave in those ends, the separate plies like I described, so in opposite directions. So one ply is weaving in one way and doing the U-turn, and the other ply is weaving in the other way and doing the U-turn. And so you got what looks sort of like a uterus and fallopian tubes. And then again, the odds of all of that coming out are going to be reduced. And if you want to, you can, if you have a sharp needle, put that that ply and then like run it through the back of a couple stitches, actually splitting those plies and like running them through to help pin them down a little bit more. I have the best weaving in ends ever. I don't know about that. Oh, there you go, Sarah Jo. I'm sorry I didn't see it. That is not annoying at all. It's just things go by. I am very proud of you doing lace too. And I want to encourage you and anyone else here. If you have accomplished something, if you have improved your skills, if you are doing something that makes yourself proud, you tell me that. And I'm going to say, go, you go, my knitters, because you know what? Every single weekend, my husband says, I know it's a ridiculous thing to be proud of, but I folded all the laundry. And I'm like, you go, you folded laundry. That is awesome. It doesn't matter. If you feel like you accomplished something, that is awesome, because I think it's amazing that we get out of bed every day, sometimes with everything that is weighing down on us. So I am super proud of you, Sarah Jo, for being good and improving at lace, because lace is not an easy to do. It takes focus and it takes attention. And if you screw it up, it becomes very painfully obvious because everything goes wonky. Screwing up in lace is not the same as screwing up in a texture pattern or something like that, where you can kind of fudge it or just knit 2 together or anything like that. Lace is unforgiving in many, many ways, but I love it. I love it. You sold your second ever copy of your first and your pattern. I am incredibly proud of you, Robin. That is an amazing accomplishment, especially if it's on Ravelry, because it's gotten to the point where there's so many patterns on Ravelry, it's almost impossible to be seen. I mean, the hot right now and everything is very much dominated by a very small handful of designers, which that's fine. I'm not criticizing it and I'm not complaining. I'm just saying you go, because it is hard to be seen. It is hard. So you obviously designed something that fit someone's need perfectly. And that is an amazing thing. Okay. The worst part of knitting and crocheting is weaving in ends. Your duplicate stitch explanation makes it feel better to weave in ends. If it makes you happy, it's the way. I know there are all kinds of different ways to weave in ends, and there are shortcuts and cheats, and I have tried a bunch of them, and I always just resort back to duplicate stitching, from the backside. Lace is something that intimidates you. You know what? There's lace that intimidates me. I had a woman in my old knitting group who did Shetland lace knitting like it was nothing. And she did it on size 4 needles with cobweb weight lace yarn, and I could not even begin to do all of that. There's so much, especially the true lace where you have the patterning on both sides. It's incredibly intimidating. And then you get into Estonian stuff, and you get into noops, and you get into all this wacky stuff. You get into 5-stitch decreases, and it's overwhelming and hard. Lace, I think lace is one of the most challenging things because they keep on coming up with wackier and wackier things. A t-shirt pattern for stripy yarns. I'm gonna go look at this. Okay, let's see here. Because I like beachy stuff. Okay, I'm gonna link this because I'm super proud of you. And because if other people put a link in chat, YouTube might stop them because YouTube doesn't necessarily like it when other people link because they're not 100% sure you're not putting something naughty there. So I put it there and it lets me because I'm in charge and this is my live. So they let me. I am so excited about this and thank you so much for choosing this model. I don't know if this is you yourself or just a lovely friend, but I absolutely adore these photographs. And that you have chosen to include. Oh, I like the shoulder detail. I like is that ribbing? I don't know, corrugated ribbing. I like it. I don't knit sweaters, but I like it. It looks fun and it looks fairly straightforward. So very cool. You also have a very nice, excellent size range. I like that it goes all the way up to 5XL. That is really great because as we've talked about on this channel before, having size inclusivity is really important. Oh, for self-striping yarn. You could do it with your own striping too. I mean, but that is excellent. Good job. There is only one thing. I have one, and I'm just going to say critique because I actually read something that said unsolicited advice is always criticism. And you know what? That's true. So this is, it's criticism, but it's friendly criticism. You underpriced it. $5 is not enough for that pattern, in my opinion. I know a lot of knitwear designers. I know a lot of the garment designers. Don't undersell yourself. I would encourage you to look through Ravelry and look at other sweaters or t-shirts that you feel are in your like similar or in the same category as your tee and see what their prices are, because I do not think that $5 for a garment pattern that runs from extra small to 5XL is market rate. I think you could charge more for it. And that is my unsolicited advice to you. Don't undersell yourself. You could bring that price up. I know that it feels exciting to have sold something. And that is amazing. And I'm proud of you. But yeah. Wait a minute. I closed. There we go. Okay, let me check and see. Knit Crochet Tiger. When I change colors, I use the Stephen West Weave and Steven. That is a great cheat. You know what? And that is exactly one of the cheats that I've tried that I went away from, because literally, if you do the Weave and Steven, next time you do it, after you've gotten past it, find where it was, put your yarn needle underneath it and just tug on it. And you will find that if you just tug on it, it comes out immediately. It only goes in one direction. It's very easy to come loose. Again, but that's if it's not a concern for you and it's not been a problem for you, you go for it. You do, and obviously Stephen West is a hugely successful designer and knows what he's doing. I personally am a control freak. And I tried it and I was able to pop it right back out. And I went, oh, no, no. I need more control. I mean, if I could put super glue on it, I would. But that's just me and a little bit of my personal obsessions. Lace does look cool. Jordan and Lana. So, Robin, you're saying you're designing a second sweater. I'll endeavor to try and do better at showing it off to hopefully get more sales. So typically, and this is something we can talk about. We've never really talked about this kind of thing about design, but there really is a business side to the design stuff. And you need to have, well, most designers have a social media presence. I have a Facebook page. You have all of those things, and you just have to build it up. Having a Instagram and sharing it on Instagram, sharing different pictures on Instagram, having a launch plan is actually a good thing. And coordinating, like you're going to put it on Ravelry, you're going to put it on Instagram, you're going to put it on your Facebook page, and those sorts of things. Maybe see if you can make a few reels, because right now, if you're on Instagram really heavily favors reels, the small videos more than anything. Putting Some designers have a lot of success with like doing Instagram and showing their process so that people can anticipate something that's coming up, and that can be a way to do it. And the other thing that is really important and has typically the highest engagement rate of anything that you could try to do is building a newsletter, building a subscribers, what is it? Building a decent number of subscribers that have, because when somebody signs up for a newsletter, they're actually saying, yes, I want you to send this to me in my email box. And having people sign up for that newsletter, they're saying, I am receptive to you direct marketing to me. And building up a newsletter base is usually a very useful thing. And again, all of this stuff takes time and it takes a lot of effort. And it's one of the things that I think is most frustrating for designers, because what we really want to do is being designing and knitting, not being a social media person. But it's what you got to do as an entrepreneur. Okay, so Robin, you said first pattern, I was being generous. So, and that's fine. And if that's what you choose to do, some people will, when they launch, give a discount for the first week it's out or something like that, and they've found that helpful. I look at it as, you know how when you go and interview for a job, they tell you to dress for the job you want, not necessarily the job you're interviewing for? Like, so, you have to think about who your ideal customer is. And is your ideal customer someone who is looking for a really cute sweater with an inclusive size range, or somebody who wants that but also is a bargain hunter kind of situation? It's about valuing your own time. But again, everybody makes different choices and you can do it however you want and whatever works for you. I think that a lot of times we as the lion's share of knitwear designers are women, and I think that we are to an extent trained to undervalue our own time and efforts. But that's a whole different thing to work at. You do what you want. You got it on a deal. You totally did. Oh my gosh, you're 50 and you live with your 75-year-old mother. Yes, that is pretty much where I am. I think my mom just turned 77 though, but I don't live with her. She lives with her two crazy dogs. Okay, tie knots. See, and knots can work. There's some people who don't like knots. Yes, lock it in over several rows. It's a control freak kind of situation. Hello, Kat. Thank you so much. Robin, the business side is such a pain in the butt. It's like the worst part of the whole thing. But otherwise, you're just kind of, it's a pain. Hello, Gail from Maryland. I'm glad you were able to join us. Okay, Jordan in Atlanta, you're a visual artist. It's the same deal. It is the same deal. Visual art, I'm sure, is even more difficult because at least I can, as a textile artist, look at other shawls and see what other shawls are priced at. But as a visual artist, it's like, how do you compare paintings? I'm like, there's a painting. It's roughly the same number of square inches, but I mean, what does that tell you? So it's rough. Um, hey LPGA, I'm excited you're here. I'm glad you made it. You're not late. You're right on time for you. Okay, Knit Crochet Tiger, you are, and that's I, you know what? I'm super excited that I have men here because I think that everybody should be knitting. I think that it is guys, gals, and non-binary pals are all welcome here, and they should all be knitting because it's fun. And I think a lot of us I think that specifically in knitting and crochet and other crafts, we inherently undervalue our work because craft is seen as somehow lesser than um, art with a capital A. And which is why I sometimes try to call myself a fiber artist because there's judgment. It's all complicated. So all I want to do is encourage you regardless to not undervalue yourself because what you're doing is awesome. Sarah Joe, it's awesome that you're doing great on lace. We had the person doing amazing cableness. It's just we tend to undervalue ourselves. We really do. People won't pay me in wine and dollar bills. um Yeah. So it's super cool. Okay, so the other question. There was a second part to Tracy's question, and she was asking about how to weave in ends to lace knitting. I might try to see if I can make a video for that. So because I do the duplicate stitch technique, I'm really just doing duplicate stitches when I am doing. So what I will do is um weave. Okay, so if your lace has a selvage, right? If it's got like a 2 or 3 or 4 stitch garter selvage where your end to weave in is, I will weave it into that selvage. So instead of doing 5 stitches in this direction, then up, and then 5 stitches, and I'll be doing like 2 stitches this way, and then going up and doing 2 stitches, and going up and doing and just doing these little tiny zigzags. If that's not viable, like sometimes, like in a shawl and something like that, what I will do is actually, so in lace where your hole is, you'll have the thing that makes the hole is 2 strands that are like twisted around each other like this, right? So what I'll do is I'll take my yarn with the yarn needle and thread it. I can't do it. Thread it between, like, between those, and thread it between the in the holes, so it's like kind of wrapping around. So instead of it's just two stitches wrapping it, two threads wrapping around each other, it'll be three threads wrapping around each other, but it's still just in that little lace part. And I'll do that until I get to a chunk of the lace that has some stockinette or garter to it. And it might just be like a little triangle or something. And I weave it in that little area. And if that's not enough, I will then jump and again split between the two wrapped strands and wrap it in there to get to another little chunk of a more solid area and weave in there and just get into that direction. So it is still very much duplicate stitching. It's just kind of more meandering just to get to solid areas where I can do more weaving in. Again, if you are working on something that is super lacy, that's almost like a mesh or something, um, you might need to leave a longer tail to weave in just so that you can secure it well. And again, the splitting the plies and weaving in separate plies if it's a problem. But like, okay, here, let's look at the back of this, right? So if you look at the back of this, see these areas where like it's this, I'd be weaving in this little chunk right here and then wrap that yellow, that's this pink, and then weave in this little chunk and then wrap and then weave in. And so I'd be jumping from chunk to chunk to try to weave in only in the chunks. And especially in lace, like I would be trying to, if I was weaving in pink, I'd be trying to hit only the pink stitches. And if I was weaving in the blue, I'd be trying to hit only the blue stitches or move to an area that it was predominantly blue. And so that we don't get the different colors, because weaving in multicolor things can get a little bit challenging. Okay. Did that help at all, Tracy? I see you said thank you, but I don't know if that helped. I'm going to see if I can make a video on it. Lace can be a challenge. The too long didn't read is work your way to a solider section and weave in that solider section. It's really the only thing I can say. And I don't know if solider is a word. But like, oh, here, this is on my desk. So like this, you pretty much, this is almost impossible to weave into, which is why I'd be trying to weave into the selvage, because this is going to be really rough. I would like weave, like if I was trying to weave this strand in right here, I would like weave it down the selvage and then get into this and weave it in there. I can't always help. People have sock questions. I'm pretty much stumped. I'm like, socks. Socks are no good. Socks, and when people have really specific sweater questions, I'm at a great loss. If we have sweater questions, we need to ask Robin. Robin designs sweaters. That's what we need, because I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to sweaters. But your sweater looks like I could actually knit it if I had the time. That is one thing. You need to be careful, Robin. I'm not discouraging you, but do note that once you start designing, you really lose most of your free time that you could be just knitting fun things for yourself. Unless all you design is a fun thing for yourself. And if that's the case, then it'll be no problem. But for me, I don't get to knit anything else. Recycle on Wednesdays. That's a great name. Do I have a regular live stream schedule? Yes, I do. I live stream. Live streaming. I live stream the last Thursday of every month is what I have been doing for over a year now. So I think it's been over a year. Yes. So it's the last Thursday of every month is when I do. Do you have any questions recycled on Wednesdays? Because that is what I'm supposed to be doing here is answering questions. Because we spent the first portion of this program talking about poking dead things with a stick, and that really wasn't on target. That was not particularly um on brand for me, I guess. Live scream. We need to just schedule a live scream. Just, it definitely needs it. Oh, very cool. That is very cool, Nick Crochet Tiger. It is fun and drawing things from inspiration. I love seeing everything that other people design. I just I have I have never ceases to amaze me. I decided I'd go look. Okay, my first Ask Barbara about knitting, designing, etc. was December 30th of 2021. Oh my gosh, I've been doing this a lot longer than I thought. I took a little break in 2023, but I've been doing this for a lot longer than I thought. Oh dang, Celeste. Well, you can go back and watch it after we're done here. It puts itself up, so you can go back and watch it. But yes, we were definitely talking about poking dead stuff with sticks. It was, Celeste. We have a hard time keeping any type of focus. Um, okay, what is the best way to join a new ball of cotton or acrylic yarn? So the way I personally join yarn, um, I don't join at all. I'm not going to tell you about any kind of Russian join or any kind of splicing or any kind of knotting. What I do, and you know what, I can show you this. I'm glad I had this laying around here. So what I do, you can see it right here. And this happened because I had already cut my yarn and then I had to go back and frog it. So see this little butterfly? See how long these are? So what that is I got to the point where I was running out of yarn and I knew I needed to start a new ball. So when I do that, I take the end of the yarn that's coming in, the end of the new yarn, and I match it up with the end of the yarn that's getting ready to peter out. And then I leave a long enough for me to weave in ends. And I tie this simple little, this is the kind that if I pull on this, it's like a half tying your shoe knot. If I pull on this, these loops are going to pop out immediately. So I tie that in just a quick loop knot. And then when I'm knitting, when I get to that loop, I just tuck it behind and knit the next stitch. So literally I'm knitting the next stitch with the new ball of yarn while leaving enough yarn to weave in. And then at the end, when I'm weaving them in, I pull out that little bow knot and I take the yarn that's coming in from this side and make sure I run it through when I'm doing my duplicate stitch. I run it through and complete that stitch and pull it so it's the right height. And then I take the other end and make it go in the opposite direction. And then I weave them in my standard way in either direction. So it's simply ending a ball on a stitch, leaving enough to weave in, and beginning the new ball on a stitch while leaving enough to weave in, and then just weaving in those ends. I do not put any knots. I do not put any splices. I do not do anything. And I do this with cotton. I do it with acrylic. I do it with wool. I do it with all of the yarns that I have ever knit with. Honestly, I've never actually knit extensively with it. I might be a little trepidatious to do it with, like a tencel or one of the super, super, super slippery yarns. I might have to come up with another solution. It might be just making sure that I end a row. I don't switch balls unless I'm at the beginning or end of a row. And then I just leave a big long strand of yarn to weave in. See, Robin likes the Russian join. So there's all different ways to do it. Russian join, does it work, Robin? Does Russian join work for plant fibers though? Because I know that like some of them really rely on it being a non-superwash wool, that it relies on it being a grabby fiber. But I know there's magic knots and there's all kinds of things that people do. And again, going back, see earlier comment on me being a little bit of a control freak. Um, there is not a knot in the world that I trust. I have, on rare occasion, when I am working with non-superwash wool, done spit splicing. And spit splicing, I trust. But other than that, I just do the extra weave-ins. See, and that's great. It just has to have several plies. I don't know how to do it though. Sarah Joe, you knit several stitches with both yarns held together and then drop the old one after a while. And that's a good way to do it. I just don't like the doubled stitches. I just, again, it's, and that is definitely not something I would do with a bulky yarn because you're going to get extra bulky stitches. I don't like doubled stitches because I don't know. because of the wonderful things it does. I don't know. It's not, yes, it's not just that spit splice only works with animal fibers. Spit splicing only works with non-superwash wool. You can't spit splice alpaca, and you can't spit splice mohair, and you can't spit splice angora. You can't, or llama. It only works with a fiber that is going to felt, and that is 100% superwash wool. You cannot spit splice something that's superwash. You cannot spit splice, even if it's non-superwash, but if it has nylon in it, you're not going to be able to spit splice it. No, spit splicing only works in very, very specific situations, which again, it's why I've only done it like 2 or 3 times. I've done it with, I think I spit spliced some Rasta once because it's already partially felted. I think I spit spliced some some Malabrigo worsted once. Something that's gonna felt really, really easy is the only thing that's gonna spit splice. You hate bulky yarn anyway. Well, I gotta say I wrote a whole book on bulky yarn, so I don't share that particular prejudice. I do like me a bulky yarn. You just haven't gotten around to it. You are early in your knitting journey. Maybe someday you will fall for the lure of bulky yarns. The thing about bulky yarn is that you can finish a hat in like 2 hours. You're like, yay, hat's done. You can finish a cowl in like an hour and a half. You can finish things that are in bulky yarn so fast. Oh my gosh. Thank you for asking a question, Recycled on Wednesdays. I thank you for saying I rock, but I like questions, and as people here can tell you, I like talking. I once had a comment on a video where the person said, "Where's the knitting? You shouldn't be called Watch Barbara Knit. You should be called Watch Barbara Talk." And I'm like, you know what? Guilty as charged. If I thought renaming my channel Watch Barbara Talk would be more attractive to people, I probably should have done that. But it was an impulse to create the channel in the first place. I mean, do y'all know why I created this channel? Have I ever told y'all why I created this channel? I created this channel. I mean, I ended up having like other reasons for it, but the primary thing behind it is my son was at the age that we spent hours, hours every week watching Minecraft videos. This was in the days of Stampy Longnose and iBallistic Squid, and we watched so many Minecraft videos. And I read an article online that said Stampy Longnose made $11 million in the previous year. I'm like, this man made $11 million from people like me and my son watching him play Minecraft on YouTube. And I was like, you know what? If people will watch somebody play a video game on YouTube, maybe somebody will watch knitting. And then I decided, and it was one of those things that normally I spend like 6 years trying to decide if I'm going to do something, but I really was just like, you know what? This is going to happen. I'm going to do it. Who cares? This was early on in YouTube. I mean, not early, but before YouTube was as popular as it is. And I decided, and I was like, okay, I got to name my channel. What the heck could I call the channel? And instead of thinking about it for any length of time, I'm like, I'm just going to call it Watch Barbara Knit. If people watch Stampy play freaking Minecraft, people can watch Barbara Knit. I got on Fiverr and got someone to make me the intro outro thing for, I think I paid $8 for it. And I'm like, there we go. And I slapped it up and we're good to go. And I tried to start making videos. Initially, I was only going to show my hands. If you look at my earliest videos, it's just top down me showing my hands. But then I realized that I just needed to suck it up and deal with the fact that I don't like the way I look on camera, but I needed to do it. And so, yeah, watch Barbara talk all the time. Okay, I'm sorry. I've been talking a lot. Still haven't knit my coffee cowl. See, love bulky. Yeah, we got bulky yarn love. If you know what, I don't wear anything I knit. So Sarah Joe. Oh my goodness. You hit a wall in your knitting journey with your 100% linen sweater. That's a lot of linen. Is it hurting your hands? 80 thread and 7/0 noodle. I don't even understand what you're saying, Celeste. I feel like you slipped into a different language there, but it sounds challenging. Linen is beautiful, but it is hard to knit with. Sinsin. Hey, Sinsin. Aside from the bead trick, which doesn't really work for me, any suggestions on how to keep the unplied 4-string yarn from slipping? The hobby sultan is driving me nuts. Drinking? The unplied yarns are really difficult to work with. The reason why yarns have historically always been plied is because it's hard to work with something that's unplied. The only thing that, and I don't know what the bead trick is, so that's curious. It's just, let me look up Hobby Sultan. I'm not familiar with that yarn. HOBBII. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's good stuff. I know exactly why you wanted this, because this is gorgeous yarn. But I know so the color change in this is accomplished by the fact that it is a multiply unplied yarns. Your only saving grace is going to be using a blunt needle in a very grabby material, like a blunt bamboo needle. But there is nothing that you can do. That I know of. Sounds like there's a bead trick, but these are just, you are essentially knitting. It really isn't even yarn. You are essentially knitting with 4 strands of cotton, just single strand cotton held at the same time. Like you might as well have just 4 separate skeins of yarn that you're holding together to make a heavier yarn. They're not in any way because they're cotton, they can't grab onto each other. They're not plied together. They're just three completely separate yarns. So holding them under as tight of tension as you can manage, going slow, blunt needle, really sticky, because a sharper needle is going to tend to split those knot plies, those strands. But yeah, that's just something that is the nature of it. It looks really cool and they're really cool patterns for it, but it's not even, it kind of falls into the same category as that really fat unspun roving style yarn that people made all those big blankets out of. It's not even really yarn. It's just three strands of cotton that you're knitting with. So it's beautiful, and I'm sorry I don't have anything better for you. But a blunt, I don't know if you're using a blunt needle and a bamboo, but those might help. Am I going to Dragon Con? No, I haven't been to Dragon Con in many years. I don't do particularly well in large crowds, and the crowds of Dragon Con have just gotten really, really intense for me. Um, the last Dragon Con I went to was decades ago. Started going to Dragon Con in like 1998, and I probably went for like 10 years. But I didn't, I couldn't, I like, mm, I think the last Dragon Con I went to, my kid was like 1 or no, 2. So he's gonna be 8. He's 7. So I probably haven't gone to Dragon Con in like 15 years. I mean, I haven't lived in the area for a while, but yeah, it's just there are too many people at Dragon Con nowadays. It's just overwhelming. And the thing is whenever I did go to Dragon Con, I worked Dragon Con. I actually worked Dragon Con when I was 6 months pregnant. I was 6 or 7 months pregnant. Was one of the dragons I worked on the photography staff for a long time, and then I worked on the art. I worked on the art staff. Like the art show, I would do the sales for the auction and things like that. That was the last because I was very pregnant. And nobody fed me and I got very cranky. Um, but yeah, I hope if you're going, you have a ton of fun. Warning for Watch Barbara knit videos are for the tutorials. Streams are for Q&A and chit chat. Minecraft is awesome. Okay, my golfer, you still have 2 sleeves to knit, but the experience was not pleasant one, and that's difficult on the hands. Linen is difficult on the hands. It is rough. It has no stretch, and you have to hold it under tension, and it hurts your hands. You'd rather watch my knitting videos, Minecraft. Yeesh. You know what? I had like, my gosh, it was 2016. I don't know how old my kid was. When the kid wants to watch Minecraft videos, you just kind of roll with it. I mean, it was better than the 8 million times I watched the movie Cars. Um, Tatting thread and needles. That's tiny, Celeste. Aluminum. I like aluminum needles a lot. I have a nickel allergy, so I can't use a lot of the metal needles. But aluminum and stainless steel are my preferred ones. But if I was knitting with this hobby yarn that was mentioned, I would definitely go with a wooden or a bamboo needle. Hobby says you can run it through one or more very small beads to help it stay together until it hits your needle or hook. Didn't work for me. Yeah, um, that sounds that sounds like a big red flag to me if I was like looking at purchasing something and they were telling me I had to do extra things for it to work. But it is beautiful, and we sold a yarn like that when I worked in the store that had a gorgeous pattern with it. It's just you gotta you gotta just really, really, really want the thing that you're gonna make with that particular yarn. Some yarns are just frustrating, like mohair. Mohair can be very, very frustrating, but you just kinda suck it up because it's fun and fuzzy. Um, Ebony needles, knit crochet tiger. I love the ebony needles, but they're slick. The goal we're looking for this cotton yarn would be a grabbier needle because the cotton is gonna cause problems. Um, but yeah, you're just gonna pace yourself at Dragon Con. Well, that's and you can't. There's no way to do everything at Dragon Con. I mean, when I first started going to Dragon Con, um, it was in the Hyatt, and they had just started moving a little bit of stuff into the Marriott, and that was it. And now it's like the entirety of downtown. I mean, I remember the first Dragon Con parade. I remember when they did it. Actually, before they started the Dragon Con parade, there was this incredibly um, so much mohair. Yes, so much mohair. Okay, if you ever have to frog your mohair, if you don't already know this, put it in the freezer. Don't know why it works, but if you take your mohair that has misbehaved and you put it in the freezer and let it stay in there for a while and then pull it out, you can frog it more easily until it warms up and then you have to put it back in the freezer. But the parade. So I remember one Dragon Con I went to, it was before they had the Dragon Con parade, but it was hilarious because it was at the point where there weren't enough people at Dragon Con to fully book out the Hyatt. And the first 2 days of Dragon Con, the Thursday and Friday of Dragon Con, overlapped with another convention. And the truly funny thing is, the other convention that it was overlapping with was the Salvation Army. So I remember, and I have pictures of, because both my husband and I were on the photography staff, of all of these little old ladies in their Salvation Army uniforms getting their picture taken with Darth Vader. It was so funny. And then the Salvation Army had a parade. So it was a Salvation Army parade, and we have photographs somewhere. They're on film. This was before digital, and of the Salvation Army parade marching by, and the 501st, which is a stormtrooper battalion, all standing at attention and saluting as the Salvation Army came past. So incredibly hilarious interactions there. That was so funny. I'm like, this is something that will never ever again happen in my lifetime. It was surreal. You went to Sarah Jo, you went to Chicago's Comic Con? Do you know how weird you have to be dressed for someone on a Chicago city bus to lean over and go, "And where are you going?" I can believe that. It's so funny. Oh yeah, knit crochet tiger. That's agreed. Mohair, alpaca, angora, any of that is way too hot in New Orleans to knit with any of that. Is no point. There is no point. Especially alpaca. Alpaca is incredibly insulative. Such a soft yarn and really insulative. I've made several things about it, and even in Atlanta, I was like, I can wear this maybe twice a year because it is too hot. Okay. So, are there any more questions? We are looking at coming up on, we've been talking for an hour and a half, but really we've only been talking about knitting stuff for maybe half of that time. But are there any more questions? See, I love all the costuming stuff. I never did any of the cosplay or the costuming, but being on the photography staff and taking all of the photographs of the masquerades and the competitions and everything, I got to see some absolutely amazing, amazing things. And I got to see it much closer up than your general person, like in the audience, is going to get to see it. And so there's really interesting how there's a lot of stuff that presented well on the stage that when we were photographing it, we weren't particularly impressed with, versus things that we were unbelievably impressed with from like 3 feet away that did not communicate very readily on the stage. It's really interesting how it depends on your perception. A hat in alpaca sounds like a great idea. Alpaca is super soft. I love alpaca. Actually, a really great yarn. Where did I do with it? Oh, here. So this is what I used for my what did I call those mitts? Overdue, the overdue mitts. So this is the remainder of the yarn from my overdue mitts, and this is a DK weight. It's called Dos Tierras, which means two lands, and it is a 50% merino wool, 50% alpaca blend from Malabrigo, and it is a really, really nice yarn. So if you were wanting to play with, and this the merino brings some structure to it, but it's a really nice yarn and it knits up really well. You guys will recognize this from the video I just did about what was that video about? I've completely forgotten. I just did a video with this and I don't remember what I was. Oh, about maintaining tension and stuff. Y'all, I think I've been talking too long tonight. But yeah, so I mean, it knits up really well, and because the alpaca fluffs it out really nice, it's really good for color work. So this, I really like this yarn, and it's very reasonably priced. That is one of my favorite things about Malabrigo yarns is they really are luxury quality yarns that are at much more reasonably accessible prices to more people. I mean, I know it's still out of the reach of plenty of people, but as it had the quality of the yarns that Malabrigo puts out is very, very high, and it has very luxury blends and very luxury colors, but it does not have that super luxury price to it. It's a more manageable price for a lot of people. So that's why I love Malabrigo. I really like, I know a lot about them, and I really like what they do. And I love that yarn. Dos Tierras is one of my favorites. River Song. Very cool. Thank you, Robin, for being here. Yeah, I've never cosplayed anybody. One of my favorites that I liked is one year there was this person who came, and this was way before the Johnny Depp one, came as an Oompa Loompa and walked around with a basket full of candy and just passed out candy to people. I was like, yeah, candy. he never really talked. He just gave people candy. I'm like, that's awesome. That is an awesome. There was a funny year at Dragon Con after, it was a couple of years after the movie came out, that you had a group of people. You remember the movie 300, the 300? There were all these men who came out and did the 300, and they had on like the little things and the six packs and everything. There was a group that came out a couple of years later that they called themselves the 300 Pounders, and they had the same costumes on, but they just took like a Sharpie and drew abs on themselves, and they were really big men. That was absolutely hilarious. I love people with a good sense of humor. An 85-year-old in a slave girl Leia cosplay. That would be something to behold. Stardew Valley farmer. Oh, that's fantastic. I cannot imagine. There's so many fun options that you could do. I see, and I'm a photographer, so I never did any of that. I took photographs. One of my favorite things to photograph, and it was funny because nobody else wanted to do it, so I did it, was down in the Warhammer area where people were doing the miniature gaming. And I would go in and I would use my micro lens, and I would do all of this forced depth of field work with the with the miniatures in their contexts. And I got some really actually, I had a couple of those photographs that were actually in a gallery show in, Atlanta, because they were really people were like, "What the hell is that?" Because it was cool because you can do this tilt you can do this shifting and, like, drop out the background and drop out the foreground and only have a little bit in focus, and it looks like real, just blowing things up. So that was a lot. That was something I really that and I once had to shoot a Klingon wedding, and it was early on, and I think it was part of the hazing because Klingon weddings are dangerous and boring because of the poetry. So that was a lot of fun. You know what? I would have to find the photos, Sarah Jo, because I think a lot of them were film. Actually, one of the coolest experiences at Dragon Con specifically the being in the photography staff, I got to do some things that most people don't get to do. And the number one thing would be that I got to meet Ray Bradbury. And that, I mean, I love science fiction and being able to meet Ray Bradbury and like be in like near him was amazing. And then it's something my husband got to do, but I accompanied him. Since my husband was the director of photography, he was contacted by the publisher of an author because it was a book that had co-authors, and one of the individuals lived in Ireland and the other one lived in the United States, and the only time they were going to be in the same place together where they could do a photograph for the book sleeve was going to be at Dragon Con just due to logistics. And the really cool thing about that is that the person who was coming over from Ireland was Anne McCaffrey. And so I got to work with my husband on the photo shoot to shoot the dust jacket for it was Anne McCaffrey and her daughter's first novel together. And I remember they were getting ready to shoot, and I realized she still had her ID tag from DragonCon on. So I said, "Oh," and I ran forward real quick and I said, "Excuse me." And I pulled her ID tag off and I clipped it on myself. I'm like, "Ha, I'm Anne McCaffrey." Like for 30 seconds, I was Anne McCaffrey. And that was very, very cool. Um, that was those are probably the two greatest moments. Um, well, and then, so one of my husband's good friends is married to a guy, an author who wrote a lot of his name's Peter David, and he wrote a lot of the Star Trek novelizations and novels. And we would get invited to a party that he threw to watch to watch something. It was like the costume contest or something. And since he was an author for Star Trek, at least one of the parties we went to had both George Takei and Walter Koenig were there. Kevin J. Anderson was there. It was just weird. It was really, really weird to be in the same space with all these people. Now, I'm a giant chicken, and it's not like I talk to any of them, but it was like weird to be able to like, hey, there's George Takei. Okay, plus size Darth Maul is amazing. Plus size Darth Maul is fantastic. I'm all for plus size Darth Maul. Yes, Ray Bradbury. And I got to meet him, but then I also went to one of his talks and I was only able, it was completely packed. And I did, abuse my privilege to be able to get in there a little bit early. Listening to him speak it was just him up there speaking. It was amazing. It's like I didn't understand how a person could be speaking in language that sounded like somebody had spent weeks and weeks and weeks crafting the phrases. I mean, he was just so brilliant and so eloquent and funny and charming, and it was just amazing. And it didn't hurt that I am a huge Ray Bradbury fan. I have a signed copy of The Martian Chronicles, and it's one of my prized possessions. And it was really for me, my primary interaction with like the science fiction of Dragon Con is less the media side and more the literature side. At that point in time, I mean, I got into the literature side, but mostly what I was into was the authors and all that kind of stuff. Sarah Joe, I asked George Takai to let me take a little video of him saying hi to my high school chemistry teacher at a con, and he said yes. Oh my gosh, George Takai is one of the nicest human beings. I mean, he falls into like that Mr. Rogers and LeVar Burton kind of category. You know, he's just an amazing human being. Your friend's hubby is Shatner's lawyer? That's nuts. And here's the thing, though. Of all the Star Trek people, I think that Kirk is one of my least favorite characters, but that's neither here nor there. I'm a next gen kind of girl. I mean, I did watch the original series, but I'm more of a next gen. I'm more of the exploring the galaxy and meeting new civilizations, and less of the shooting with ray guns and kissing green women is really where I divide the original series versus the next generation. I mean, we got Riker. See? We got Riker. He is such an enthusiastic knitting model. Commander Riker is awesome. Even if he's not particularly cooperative with standing up all the time. Ooh, that's cool. Just one of the actors from Discovery came to see you in a play. He is a horrible actor. I didn't say it. You did. I am not disagreeing with you. Team Next Gen. Oh, that is really cool, Sarah Joe. Riker with the beard. Yes, Riker with the beard is superior to non-bearded Riker. That's a hill I'll die on. I can't get with the trombone though. The trombone is just no, not a sexy instrument. There are sexy instruments. Trombone is not one of them. I mean, there's just something about a trombone. Okay. Wow. We've really, really gone off the rails here. Do we have any knitting questions? Okay, let me see if I missed anything. I love that we have such an eclectic and fun group of people who choose to take their time to chat with me on Thursday nights. It really is the highlight of my month, and I really appreciate y'all taking your time to join me. And knitting questions or no knitting questions, yarn questions or no. I mean, we didn't really talk about needles this time. I don't know if we can officially call it a live stream. I actually do have a Trek-inspired knitting pattern. You thought that was not going to be an answer that I had, but I do have a Trek-inspired knitting pattern. It's on page 31 in my book. Let me find it. I have on the wrong glasses to be doing this. So, if you look at these right there, actually, if I turn it upside down, it might be more visible. The motifs on the back of these gloves are supposed to look like the communicator devices from Star Trek. And I named these To Warmly Go because I'm silly. Instead of To Boldly Go. Get it? Here, there's another picture. They're right side up. So it's supposed to look like the communicator devices from Star Trek. So I do in fact have a Star Trek inspired pattern. This also has two. This book also has two Expanse themed. Here's it. This one's called Avasarala. It's from The Expanse, and there's also one called Rocinante. And then this is from Legend of Zelda. It's the rupee slouch because it's got a rupee on it. And then I was on a roll with this particular book. Is it in this one or is it in the other one? Huh. Oh, there it is, page 55. The other nerdy one, this one is called Dash Panel because it looks like the little things on the ground in Mario Kart that make you go fast. So that's Dash Panel. Thank you, Recycled on Wednesdays. I hope to see you next month. If you sheared a turtle, could you knit with a fiber? I don't know. I mean, it's possible. I don't know what their fiber's like. It would be a useful thing. Hello, Scraptastic Crocheter in Sweden. That is super cool. You know what? There are a lot of us who are geeks or nerds, but I don't want to say we're all geeks and nerds because even if you're not a geek or nerd, I'm still excited that you're here because everybody has their own passions in life. And one thing I think we can all agree on is that we're like knitting nerds. We're all knitting nerds. But you know, I am a big geek and a big nerd. And so I probably attract, like attracts like. But yeah, I'm excited that y'all kind of match my freak. So you're knitting and you found your plan for the weekend. That is excellent, Karen. The Expanse I loved The Expanse. Is really good. Animorphs. I'm afraid Animorphs are after my time. I might have to look at them eventually. Melissa said, thank you so much for making the Saying No in Selfish Knitters video. I am all for that. Was from the heart because nobody, you're not obligated to give anyone your time. If you choose to give someone something out of love, that's fine. But nobody's obligated for your time. And that's something I feel very strongly about. And frankly, I can't remember all of that video. I think it was probably kind of rough for me to not use more strong language. I really try to be polite at all times because the YouTube gets angry if you say mean things. Well, it's not that they get angry. It's just that they say that you have mature content. And then they won't put ads on it. Not that I care about ads, but if you get flagged as mature, then they don't suggest your video to as many people. And I want to meet as many people as I can. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Tracy. Yes, I had my Star Wars pattern. That is one of the highlights of my career. I don't know. I like nerds. I'm a nerd. I like nerdy stuff. I got all kinds of nerdy stuff. Somebody said they were zooming in on my background. And I was like, good luck with that. One of my favorites. I got this a while ago, and this is one of my favorite things. This little stuffed guy, okay? The fact that this exists makes me happy. This is a stuffed Grand Moff Tarkin. And there's just something inherently funny about that. He's the actor is so proper and so stern, and he's such a strong character, and he's got a fuzzy gray butt, okay? He's got his cranky, look, they put cheekbones on him. This is a super cranky stuffed animal, Grand Moff Tarkin. When I saw this, it made me laugh so hard. The other ones are definitely bad guys. I got Palpatine, and I've got these are the two versions of Palpatine. This is Senator what's his face. I can't remember. I got the bad guys. I just thought it was funny to have super cranky bad guy stuffed animals. Got that in Disney one year. And I've got my Miyazaki. It's the Yubaba. And she's got her little tiny Raven version. Love Spirited Away. I should do a Spirited Away. I wonder if I could come up with a Spirited Away pattern. Spirited Away is pretty much my favorite movie. Okay, Celeste, you got the laugh, dude. A stuffed Grand Moff Tarkin. Who even thought that was a good idea? Who was like, yeah, we need to make a stuffed Grand Moff Tarkin? It's just, I mean, he's in what, one movie? I mean, he's just like, he doesn't even make it to the end of the movie, does he? I can't remember. It just made me laugh. I think he's one of the ones that they like CGI'd into earlier movies. It made me laugh so hard. Okay. It's been a long night. Thank you all so much for joining me. If you think of any questions, please let me know. Feel free to comment in the Facebook or comment in any videos or comment on this video once it goes up for review. And you can ask me questions. If it's a complicated question, I might be able to make a whole video about it. I really do like getting inspiration for new videos because I know that it's something that at least one of my viewers really wants to know about. And so that makes me happy. Yeah, he's in one, if you count CG in Rogue One. I really don't count the CG in Rogue One, but Rogue One is a fantastic movie, though. I mean, it may be my favorite Star Wars movie. I have to think about that too much. But it's such a good one. Such a good one. Okay. Thank you all so much for joining me. If you haven't clicked the thumbs up like button, I would appreciate it if you just gave it a little click so that YouTube knows that people like hanging out here, and it might suggest more people and we can have more fun with more people. But that's just there. I really appreciate it. I'm excited that we had someone from Sweden. And thank you all for joining me on this incredibly rambling evening of sidetracks and side quests and all kinds of wacky stuff. So, yes. You have a great evening, and I will see you next month. Hang on. Next month, I might have to do next month's live from my phone because I am going to be in Orlando. My niece has secured during her gap year from school, because she goes to university in England. She has secured an internship with Disney, and that last full week of July, we will be in Orlando helping her move into her dorm on Disney's campus. So we're very excited about that, and I'm excited to support my niece. So next, I will try to set it up so we can do it. You guys remember during Hurricane Ian where I set it up, but I had to like double it up. Since I'm planning ahead, I should be able to set it that I can do it from my phone, and we'll be able to do it. It might just be a little bit different. Who knows? I won't really have a controlled environment, but it'll be a remote viewing kind of situation. Okay. Thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Sweet dreams to you, Stitch Itch. And excellent. Okay. I will talk to y'all later. I'm going to push the end button, and then we're going to end. Okay.